Hello, this is Idodmg and welcome back to the channel. In this Indie RPG video, I want to talk about this new upcoming game called Wigmund, The Return of the Hidden Knights. This game is quite different than a lot of other action RPGs that I've played of recent times, and the amount of uniqueness and just the world and everything with this game is something incredible to me and just something I haven't experienced in quite a while. It brought me back to my childhood, back to playing Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2 on the PlayStation 2 way back in the day. The nostalgia was real. I'm not sure if that's entirely what this game is aiming for, though, but in this video I just want to talk about this game and help you decide if it's something you should keep an eye on or pick up. The game will be launching into Steam Early Access on January 11th, 2021, with a price tag of $15.99 US. The very first thing I want to talk about that really stood out to me with this game was the world and just the atmosphere that this game offers. When you very first start out, you're in this really dark, kind of gloomy-like dungeon that you have to crawl through, you have to navigate, fighting mobs, while adapting to the new combat system that we will talk about later. The combat is super unique, but I really want to just focus on what there is currently, because this is going to be a huge deciding factor, I think, for many prospective players. They do plan to have 5 chapters upon full release of the game once it leaves early access. Currently, there's only about half of 1 chapter available. This leaves a very limited amount of playtime, but there are 3 different difficulties that you can play through on. I played on one of the easier difficulty settings, and it was still a little bit of a challenge, mainly just learning the combat and stuff, but it took me around 3 hours, I think, to complete the lowest difficulty. There's still 2 higher difficulties that I will probably check out as we see more updates during early access. Where things get interesting in the way that they're kind of pinpointing down the monetization of this game is, I mentioned the price will be $15.99 when it does enter early access initially on January 11th. After that, they're planning to release a new chapter every 3 months. And the price is going to increase as they approach release. They're thinking for the full version about a $25 to $30 range. So if you do the math, that's about 6 hours a chapter. You're talking about a 30-hour game, give or take. Some of the chapters I'm assuming are going to be longer, more in depth. But it's really too early to really kind of tell if that $30 price will be fair at release or not. But I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop in that regard. Yeah, I really wanted you to know about that because it is $15.99 USD. So just know that currently there's not a lot of content, but I really think that it's worth picking up now because it is such a unique and special game, and the world is just so enticing, interesting, and mysterious that it's one of those you should pick up, just check out for a few hours, and then wait for it to grow. The polished and high level of detail that I saw in my short 3-hour playthrough was really surprising to me. I'm used to playing some indie games that maybe are a little bit more lacking in the polish department. And in Wigmund, I really had no issues or bugs or anything of that nature. The only thing that I had was I wish that I would have had a quick save button, which they've now added after I've talked to the developer. Which brings me to another interesting point. Within Wigmund, you want to make sure you're constantly saving. If you forget to save and you go for, let's say, an hour into this dungeon, and you happen to die, you then go back to your very last save. There was no autosave when I played, and I don't think that that's even going to be in the game. But that's okay as long as you can remember to save very often. The current content, as I said, is 3 hours. There's no voice acting. I went through the entire playthrough. I'll have a link to the VOD down in the description, but I went through the entire playthrough, and I read the majority of the dialogue. I'm usually not into lore, but this game really, I don't know, there was just something magical to me about this game that just really, I felt like a kid again when I was playing it. I was interested in the world and the characters throughout the short time that I played. But anyway, I could go on and just talk about the world and the environment and just how great it is. But I'll spare you the time. Let's talk a little bit about itemization and loot. Wigmund's a bit different than other action RPG, loot, or hack and slash type games. This one is more of a strategic, kind of a slower approach to gameplay, which we'll talk about next. But in terms of item and loot, you're not going to be getting loads and loads of just shiny loot splashing out from the dead corpses. It's not that type of game. From my experience, it appears as though items are in fixed locations. I think it's more of a kind of like maybe a handcrafted game where, each playthrough where this sword's going to be type of deal, which is totally fine and fits this game well, I think. I didn't find any really randomized items. I think they're all fixed. But what's really cool about the game in terms of itemization is you do have 18 different item slots. That includes weapons and armor. You also have your left side shoulder, knee pads, and gloves. So it just offers more item slots there. There's different trinket slots, back pieces, 18 slots in total. And there's also gear sets in the game. I think they go up to a 10 piece. If you're wearing 10 pieces of the same set, you get this bonus, and there's smaller bonuses on the way up to that whole 10 slot bonus. So you can really kind of mix match. I think currently I only found 2 different armor sets. One was more of a defensive set, while the other one was more offensive. There wasn't a lot there in terms of really min-maxing your items or loot. And on the other side, when it comes to skills, I noticed that there is only 3 skills currently in the game. One is an attack speed buff, and then you have 2 different abilities that you can use. I don't really have a lot to comment on in terms of the abilities. But where this game really stands out, and I wanted to save the best for last, and this is the combat and gameplay. This is really, really unique and something I have not experienced before in the genre. In most action RPGs, you use left click to move, and then you have your 1, 2, 3, and 4 abilities. In Wigmund, it's a lot different. You have a movement mode and an attack mode that you can toggle by pressing and holding down the left control button. Most keybinds can be rebound in the option settings, but by default, your left control, when you're not pressing it down, you are in a movement mode, and you can move, interact with the world, and loot items and things like that. And one comment I do have on movement is you can't hold left click to move. You have to click each time that you want to actually move. Hopefully this gets looked at. It's just kind of a very minor thing that I did notice. But in terms of combat, when you hold down left control, you are then committed to an attack of some sort. And the way that you move your mouse is how you tell your character to attack. So if you're holding down control and you move your mouse up, you're going to do a frontal slash. If you move it backwards, you'll slash behind yourself. And then you can also do left and right attacks as well. This also applies to dodging and blocking. If you just simply click, it'll be a block. If you right click and move the mouse, it'll be a full-on dodge in the direction that you move the mouse in. That's a very, very basic explanation of combat. And what's really interesting and really took me a little bit to learn within Wigmund is I found myself when I was very first starting to learn the combat is I would move the mouse in the orientation of my screen instead of my character. So for example, let's say my character is actually facing the bottom of the screen, and I swipe down because that's the direction I want to attack in. Actually, he would attack behind himself, and then it would be the opposite direction. But once I learned to pay attention to where my character was facing instead of just going off the screen, it just felt a lot more engaging and immersive and rewarding to really take down some of the bigger bosses later in the current available content. That's pretty much all I can think of for Wigmund, The Return of the Hidden Knights. And I just want to share some final closing thoughts with you here. The price is $15.99. I think that may be a little bit high considering there's only 3 to 4 hours if you're an experienced player of this type of game. You could get more than that if you wanted to play all the different difficulties. You could probably get up to 10, maybe 15 hours out of the current content. That's just my opinion, and I think with a price tag of $15.99, it's more of I really like this game. I really want to get behind it and support the development of this game and see it through. I really recommend it. This game has something special to it that I just haven't seen in the genre that I can remember. I honestly, playing through the game, I had memories back to when I was a kid playing on the PlayStation 2 and staying up till 4 in the morning playing Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. And it just the amount of nostalgia, the world aesthetics, the unique gameplay. There's something here, guys. Put this on your wish list. Consider picking it up on the 11th. Maybe keep an eye on it as the early access progresses. But definitely don't skip out on this game. There's something special here. And I honestly wish the developers behind the game which happens to be a father and his 2 oldest sons that are actually working on the game, that's just amazing to me. I wish you guys the best of luck. I want to thank you guys so much for an amazing year that we had of 2020 here on the channel. We saw some great developments. We've met a lot of cool people. Your guys' continued support means the world to me. I just love talking about and sharing my experiences with games with you guys. And the fact that there's even maybe 1 or 2 people in this world that enjoy that just is more than I can even ask for. Thank you seriously for all of your support throughout the past year. It has been something I will never forget. If you enjoyed this video and the content on the channel, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to ring that bell notification to make sure you get notified when I post new weekly videos. Consider sharing all this content with a pal. Also, please feel free to check out our social media links down below. We do have a Twitter, Discord, and I do stream on Twitch, mainly on the weekends. You guys are awesome, and as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.